Now, anybody here, have you ever been in love? Have you ever been in a romantic relationship where sometimes you are on top of the world, it is the best thing ever, and then maybe a week or a few months later, it is totally terrible? Some friends of mine went through this, and even though they seemed to be perfectly compatible, sometimes they were up and sometimes they were down, and sometimes they were up, sometimes they were down, and it got so down that they would leave the relationship even though the compatibility to me, the compatibility really wasn't going up and down. They were, they were pretty well matched. And so I got curious about that, and I created a model as, well, of course, I don't know what you guys would do. Well, the other person has good traits and they have bad traits. The observable traits, both good traits and bad traits, the observable is just some fraction. And then the degree of compatibility is just the fraction of all the traits that are good traits. But you don't believe anything based on just a few minutes of exposure, right? You have to see these traits over a period of time, this compatibility over a little period of time. And so there's perceived compatibility, and there's some time to perceive that compatibility. And now, based on the perceived compatibility, you compare that to what's normal with just a person, with just friends or enemies. And if you're above normal, well, that, my friends, that's love. So what do you do when you love somebody? Well, you desire to spend time together. So the relationship, this is not going to be a graph over time. This is going to be the relationship between relative time spent together, or just time spent together, and the amount of traits you observe. Okay? So if you look at good traits, it might look something like this. And eventually, you'll be seeing 100% of the good traits. Good traits, okay? With just a little bit of time together, you don't have time to observe very many. If you're spending a lot of time together, you get to observe more of them. But then, the more and more time, people start saying the real you, and at some point, it goes back up like that. How about if we can perceive compatibility faster or slower? Will that help? So if you can perceive things faster, this is actually a negative loop here that we've got here. And you take out, as you diminish the delay in it, it becomes less oscillatory. It's not just negative loops. Here is a reinforcing loop. So the more time spent together, the more our desired time spent together. And the more desired time, the more time spent together. So there's a reinforcing loop, and the reinforcing loop is destabilizing. Now, this was the model I created, and my very next girlfriend is now my wife of about 30 years. So this system dynamics stuff it's not just useful for like supply chains or for epidemics. It's important for the really important stuff.